and welcome to this episode of the Called Forth podcast. I'm here with my guest today, Judy Katz. I'm so excited for her to be on. I actually just really started to get to know her within the last few weeks, and I heard her share pieces of her story, and I'm like, Judy, you have to be on the Called Forth podcast. You have to come on and share, just because there's just so much golden wisdom that she shared out of the things that she's walked through, and she's written a book, so I'm excited to get into some of those details. So welcome, Judy, to the Called Forth podcast.
Thank you. You're having me.
Absolutely. So I thought we would just kind of open up the floor with you sharing about the fact that you have written a book and you're in the process of getting it published. I'd love for you to talk about like what led you to write this book.
Well, a lot of it was journal writing as we went through losing everything, and it's just as a coping mechanism. And then I had put those together and I shared some with some people, some close friends, and they're like, you need to write a book because people need to hear this. And then, I'm like, there were like people in the faith, and then there are people that weren't in the faith that said, you need to write a book because that's amazing. People need to hear this. Mm-hmm. And every time I would share anything, they're like, you need to write a book because, mm-hmm. And so after about the fifth or sixth time, it's like, okay, Lord, I get it. I need to write a book.
Yeah.
So, and then when it was funny when Kendra had prayed for me that one day, she's like, and there's a writing, like a book? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know, I gotta finish.
Yeah.
I got 3/4 done, and then it's just like I froze. It's like, because it's raw. It's actually 100% raw, and you feel raw and exposed when you put stuff like that out there. Mm-hmm. And so it's
a vulnerable process.
Yes, very much so.
So for those who haven't heard your story, when you say that it was kind of birthed out of, your process after you've lost everything, what does that mean when you say you lost everything?
Well, we lived the American lifestyle, and there was a lady once that came up to me as we were just like so far behind. We went from making like $5,000 a month to $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And so when I had fallen and broken my leg, so it was kind of, and we had some savings, but not a lot. And so we were able to go for a little while, but we eventually got through that, and we just kind of got to the point where we couldn't pay anything, and not anything, but we got our income back up a little bit, but every month we were still $1,000 over our head. Mm. And so eventually, slowly things started falling away, like our mortgage, but I know then what I know now, I would have done things completely different. But then I probably wouldn't be in the position I'm in today because of that, Mm-hmm. So sometimes we have to take our knocks and our bumps because they have a purpose.
Right. What kind of precipitated, if you can share, you said you were on one income, you went down to a much lower income, and that kind of led to the spiral of where things were starting to fall away, you said. So what led to the drop in income?
Well, the first one was, it was 2008, 2009 when what they call the recession hit. Mm-hmm. And so I used to have like 5 travel, because I work as a traveling med tech.
Okay.
And so there used to be like 5 jobs for every tech, and it got to be 5 techs for every job. Mm-hmm. And so it was harder to get a job. Mm-hmm. I went permanent, and when you go permanent, you lose about half your income. Mm-hmm. So that was the first drop. Prior to that, when I fell and broke my leg, is when we kind of went through everything. Mm-hmm. We kind of bounced back from that with travel jobs. Then the recession hit. I went permanent, and then I did wind up going back to traveling for a little while. But again, they were like, I'd get caught up one month. The first month I'd get caught up. Second month I'd maintain. Third month I'd have savings. And then we were right back. Because it'd be like 3 months between assignments. Mm-hmm. 2 to 3 months before you could get another assignment. So it's like we'd always that cycle of getting by and getting by and getting by. Mm-hmm. And
So in your process, you went through this really difficult challenge with your finances, and then, I know at some point you became a Dave Ramsey coach. So can you kind of talk about the process from when you had lost everything to when God started to redeem that, and you decided, I'm going to go after this Dave Ramsey certification, and you started going down that road?
Well, right in the middle of losing everything, my husband goes, I read on this thing and this guy, they're doing this Financial Peace University at the church, and they can tell us how to save money. I looked at him and said, I know how to tell you to save money. Don't pay $100 to go to the course. I'm glad he didn't listen to me, because it has immense value. We learned the baby steps. I shut down after baby step 1, which is save $1,000, because we couldn't even pay what we had. How were we going to save $1,000? You know. Again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have done things differently. But hindsight's 2020. But it's one of those things that it's still stuck in my mind. I took the class again. I had asked, my husband had been doing the bills. And it's not his fault, because when I traveled, I would be lonely, I'd be bored, and so I would shop. Mm-hmm. So he's like, well, I had money to pay this, but not anymore. Or I had money to pay this, not anymore. So he was doing what he could do with me blowing up our budget. So, I mean, there's that. So basically, I asked my husband after we had started building ourselves back up, I asked him if he would give me the chance to fix what I had created. Mm-hmm. And I said, I understand if you can't trust me to do that, you know, I have to earn that trust back. But I said, will you give me the chance? And from there, you know, people kind of look at it going, well, why are you going to your husband for, you know, finances or this, that, or the other? Or why does he need to be in it? And I'm like, because it's a relationship. And when there's broken trust, you have to rebuild that. And one way to do that, one way to keep me honest and on a straight and narrow path is to say, hey, here's the budget I came up with. What do you think? You know, is there anything you want to change? Do you think that, you know, this, that, and the other? And normally he says, looks good. It's one of those things that I felt like I had to fix what I broke. Mm-hmm. And it was not just our finances, it was trust. It was our relationship. And it wasn't just it was a mutual consensus that we both wanted to work on it. Because I can't fix it if he doesn't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I know you had even shared one time when we were talking that when you came to the realization that you had a shopping addiction, that God revealed something about the truth, a deeper truth in that. And you know, you can elaborate more on it than what I'm going to say. But you said something about he showed you that your value isn't in the things that you have.
Right.
And I thought that was so beautiful. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Part of the shopping was also from traumatic past. I was buying things and to feel like I had value. And things don't provide us value. Your car you drive doesn't provide you value. This, that, and the other. I guess the biggest lesson learned at that point in time was when we were in the middle of losing everything. And this lady pulls up and she's got an older car and she's like, man, you must be rich. And I said, what makes you say that? She's like, well, look at your house. I laughed. It's like, look at your car. I laughed. I said, is that your car? She goes, yeah. I said, do you own it? Yeah, but it's a piece of junk. And I said, that house you see, I rent from the bank every month. I don't own it. The car I drive, I rent from the bank every month. I don't own that. So do you have to worry that if you don't make a payment that they're going to come and repo your car? She's like, no, but who would want it? I said, do you owe anybody money? And she's like, I owe my mom $20. And I said, we're about $200,000 in debt. And I was just pulling a number out of the air. When I actually did the math, it was like $203,000. Mm-hmm. And I said, do you realize you're richer than I am? She got real quiet, looked at me, and then then she got back in her car. But it's that mind shift that we think that when people have nice things that they have value, and that's not true.
Right.
Each one of us has value. Each one of us has a purpose in life, and that's why I love your guys' conference, because each one of us has a purpose in our life that we have to realize and reveal, and it's not in what we owe or what we own or anything like that. I remember doing a Mary Kay table set up for a display, and I was filming it, and I'm like, it was really pretty. It was like had pretty flowers on it and that display. And I started painting the room, and I saw all these boxes, and I almost thought it becomes so much of the background. I'm like, and I went to the bedroom, which wasn't so bad. I went out to the front porch, and it was completely three season because it didn't have heat. But it was like, and it had boxes piled up, and I went to the real 8x20 closet, and it had stuff piled up. And I thought, Houston, we have a problem. Guess this could be unsafe eventually. When we lost everything, I felt lost. Because everything that I tied my value and my self-worth into was gone. My house, my vehicle I drove, everything that people said I had value, had worth, and things like that. And it was a lie. I didn't own anything. Everything was mortgaged or on a credit card or on loan, or, and it was just, losing everything was horrible. But at the same point, it was also releasing, because it's like when we moved from the cities to Galesburg, we wound up having our bedroom set and clothes. That's what we had. And so, I mean, I'm just grateful we had a bed, And so, we came here. After the bus broke down, we had the bus fully packed with everything we needed, and we had to leave a bunch of stuff. And that's where I broke down, is because I thought I had overcome it, but apparently I had not. Because I didn't know what to bring, because everything I needed it. I felt like I needed it. But when push came to shove and we had 30 minutes before they closed to get the stuff out of the bus, we took the 2 power chairs I had. We had to leave one on the bus. We had 3 total. I left one on the bus. We took 2 of them. We took the 2 that were working. The one that wasn't working at the time, we just had to leave. And then we took our clothes, our dog, her dog bed, and I think that's it. We got to our apartment, we put our clothes down, we had to go to a hotel room because we didn't have a bed at the time. So we rented a bed and a recliner, and that's pretty much what we had. We had no living room furniture. We went to the resale shop and bought 2 plates, 2 knives, 2 forks, 2 spoons.
Did it feel like a fresh start in a sense? Because you had said it was like, it was a release. So was it like kind of even in a sense like a fresh start with things?
Yeah. And God pretty much said that you need to go home back to Galesburg, and not permanently, but just you need to get rid of stuff. You still need to get rid of stuff. And I didn't realize at the time what he was doing was, you need to get rid of all the old so I can replace it with new. Because anything that we had in that journey, that 10 from 2014 till we sold our house in 2024, everything in that time frame is now, I mean, we have some furniture and stuff, but all of the major things like the bus, it still wasn't running after a year. So we wound up selling it for fairly inexpensive. One of the two vans that we had, the original van from 2014, which was a 1987 Chevy. There's a story on that one too. We call it Blessing for a reason. We took it into the shop after our 95 went down, and he's like, I can't give you back your van. And I said, why not? He goes, because your brake lines are busted. He goes, I don't know how you stopped.
Oh my goodness.
They're rusted.
Wow.
He and I looked at each other and went, Jesus.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I would kind of love to lean into. I know you have shared about your process before of how through these experiences where you lost everything, but through that God gave you a newer revelation that brought healing. I'd love to lean into how you've learned the value of processing emotion, because I know that's things that you've talked about, like not brushing things under the rug, just really processing through the deeper revelation that comes with really understanding emotion. You can speak more articulately to it because I've heard you share it. Just even things where I know negative words were spoken over you when you decided to go to college, and that kind of planted a seed, but I'd love for you to talk about the emotion side of it, processing.
Well, I've learned that I've always been a stuffer. When things come in, it's like, I don't have time to deal with it now. Push it down, push it down, push it down. And then it eventually comes out in like, I always say it comes out in a dysfunctional behavior, whether it be, eating things I know I shouldn't eat, or lashing out at somebody who didn't deserve it just because I perceived everybody else had done this to me, so that's what they intended. And this biggest thing that I've learned in this journey is about perceptions, assumptions, and expectations. When we properly process emotions, we can get truth. And it may not be truth we want to hear, but we get truth. Because there's a time this is kind of funny, so people, I hope you laugh. So I was at work and I said, Lord, you gotta help. Because I worked with a lady and she was so phenomenal. She carried the department. She was awesome. And when she wasn't there, things fell apart. And so I was like, and she and I worked well together because she knew my routine, I knew her routine, so she could start something, I could finish it, and vice versa, Mm-hmm. We worked really well together. And this other lady came in, and she's super nice, but it was a situation where I was getting frustrated because I was having to clean up because she'd start something and not finish it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Lord, you gotta help me because I don't have time to be digging specimens out and blah, blah, blah. So on my break, I was praying. I was like, Lord, you gotta do something. He's like, okay, so let's work through this. So you say that you this, that, and the other. And he's like, did you tell her what your expectations were? No, but she should know. So he goes, so you have unmet expectations? Yes. You have unspoken expectations? Yeah. So you're the perpetrator of your own victimhood in this situation. If you want things to change, you need to say something. And I'm like, well, hey, you weren't supposed to fix me. You're supposed to fix her. So sometimes we don't always get, but our perceptions are the lenses of our past experiences. Mm-hmm. And also trust that there's always this new thing out there they call my truth. And it doesn't sit well in my spirit because my truth isn't truth. Mm-hmm. It might be who I am. It might be how I see things. But our perceptions are based on our past. So when we perceive certain things, it's based through filters of our past. And those could be wrong. And then when we make assumptions based on those perceptions that are wrong, now our assumptions are now wrong. And if you ever said, and I used to do this all the time, so thank goodness I've stopped and things have gotten amazingly better. but she meant this, or he meant this, or this was their intentions, or this was this, based on perceptions. And then pretty soon I wondered how I got all the way over there when I started here. And truth brought me to here, and I was over there based on my perception, my assumptions based on my truth. And if I can do anything, that's where a lot of misunderstandings come in and anger comes in, when we assume we know what somebody's thinking, what somebody's going through. We think we have their understanding. We had no idea. Like I had a perception that somebody didn't care about something. And what I didn't know was that they were trying to get me help. But my perception was based on what I saw, was they didn't care. And I was way off base. So that humble pie is nasty taste. But not only that, but it destroys relationships. So one thing I learned to do is about expectations. The guy downloaded in my spirit expectations to drop expectations. Expectations are your expectations of me are yours. If I can meet them, I'm more than willing to. But if it's not in my wheelhouse, it's not going to happen. What we do with that disappointment from those expectations is on us. Meaning, like, if I expect you to do A and you said, I don't have time to do A, I can't do that. If I'm disappointed or upset, it's my responsibility to filter through that. So what I've learned to do is drop expectations of anybody else except to be who they pretend to be until they become who they are and until they walk through transition into God's purpose for who they're supposed to be and their purpose. So, and when you do that, it's like you don't have to worry about people's intentions. You don't have to worry about any of that. I also have learned to drop expectations of others for me. If I can accommodate that, I will. If it's not in my wheelhouse, I'm going to be like, sorry. I can't. And it's just the freedom that gives. It's like, I don't get angry nearly as much. So I don't have to process as many emotions. But there is a trauma coach that I've been working with that has a program that's phenomenal that talks you through, okay, so you have to acknowledge your feelings. You can't stuff them down. Because otherwise, it's like if you don't crawl over that wall by processing them, you're going to stay behind the wall. That's not her wording, that's mine. It's because that's what it feels like. You hit that wall of emotions and you're like, I'm just going to try to push it down. Eventually you get a really big wall. And it comes out in a dysfunctional behavior. So I really enjoy working through that process. Because since I've learned to regulate emotions, my life is so much nicer. Because my emotions don't control me anymore. Yeah.
It sounds like as you're talking, it sounds like there's accountability then, because you're not, if you're in charge of doing with the disappointment what you can do. And that's a personal accountability thing, a personal growth and development thing. And then when you were talking about not holding on to expectations from other people that maybe you can't fulfill, it sounds like there's even some boundary in that you're placing, like accountability and boundaries. Would you say that those things are a part of it?
Yeah, because we can't set boundaries for others and expect to have no boundaries for ourselves. And that's kind of what accountability is, my boundary. First thing I always used to say, sure, I'll do that for you. Sure, I'll do that for you. And I was letting people down left and right because I had every intention to, but I overbooked myself. And so I've learned that I don't take on something I can't finish. Because then I feel rotten. Because I disappointed somebody, I let somebody down. I'm not a woman of my word. And there's some things with finances in there too. It's like, I had planned on paying everybody back. That helped. but the actions didn't show otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
My intentions were honorable,
Mm-hmm.
but through dysfunction, my actions never occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of those times we've come back and we've gone, hey, I owe you this. I need to pay this back. I need to pay it,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
So as you've been just sharing different parts of your stories, sounds like although what you've walked through, I'm sure has been painful at times, that God was really able to give you a deeper truth out of it to, God wastes nothing. He wastes no season. So it sounds like even though a lot of what you've walked through is painful, He's still been able to help you process through in a way where you can pull the gold from it. You can leave the pain behind, but hold on to the gold. And then you've used that lesson as you've gone into the next season where He's taking you even deeper. Like, no, I want to refine even this in you. And I just think it's just such a beautiful journey of refinement and processing. And when I say beautiful, I don't mean like, oh, it was all done perfectly, because nobody's done everything perfectly. Nobody's, that's just not reality. But I feel like what shines from your story is just like the goodness of God and how He's just shown you a deeper, beautiful truth that you can hold on to as you process through these things. So maybe could you talk about just what God's shown you in the process of your journey as you reflect back on all the things that you've walked through, some of those deep life lessons that God has, and you've shared some, but I just kind of expand in that way.
I really want to say to people, you can have a real conversation with God. When I had the wound and everything was like just recently, and and we were in our, as we call it, our Job 2 and 6 season. It was one of those things where I was equipped for almost anything. It felt like you got hit with an electrical line, thrown back against the wall, you get up and you go again. And then it's like you get knocked back again and you get up and keep going. And, it just felt like constant knockdowns. And but when they went to I went to wound care, they said, well, you could potentially have cancer. I wasn't ready for that. So I remember going back to work and I said, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but you and I need to have a talk because I'm about done. And I didn't get scolded. I didn't get punished. I didn't, his response was, I have better things for you. I have bigger things for you. He's like, you're going through this so you can handle the bigger things. So I can't remember scripture and verse, but count it all joy when you go through those trials. Is it Matthew, I think? Matthew.
I'd have to look it up. I'm not 100% sure.
But count it all joy when you go through these struggles and these trials and these storms, because they're going to come. And sometimes they're little ones and you're like, but they're because you've been through these. There's when things, I don't know if you saw on Facebook or not, the Saturday that, it was, I laugh, but 2 years ago, I'd have been humiliated. Where I had taken my dog out and I went to get it and my tires slipped into the grass, front caster tires. And so then I thought, I'll just back up. And they were like parallel. So I was going to turn, but the drive tires was just angled just right, would just spin. And I left my phone in my purse because I thought, what'll happen in 10 minutes? Nothing will happen. So after about trying to flag people down for 30 minutes, people are like waving, hi. I'm like, waving back. And I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I lowered myself to the ground. And it happened to be in the same areas where the dog pooped, but I did clean it up, but apparently not well enough. And so I thought, man, if I can get off the chair, I can push up on it and use the joystick and push it back. And I thought, I can get back up then. Yeah, famous last words. So I thought, I can get myself to hands and knees position. I can get myself up off the ground. In the process of trying this, I wrote on Facebook, contort my body to hands and knees position. People drove by and asked if I needed help. Now, I'm normally very sarcastic, and God's been working on that because it's not really nice. I mean it as funny, but sometimes it can be taken wrong. So what popped in my head when I was writing it after the fact. Now, what I really said, I'll tell you the order I said it in. I said, no, yeah, I do need help. Can you get help across the street down the street from fire station? They said, sure, no problem. So I went and got help. And of course, they showed up with the fire truck and ambulance with the lights on. And of course, then everybody's standing around like, where were you 30 minutes ago? And I put in there, can we all have a moment of silence for the death of my bride today? So they took 7 people to get me back up in my chair. And I went off and kind of continued the rest of my day. And there was about the van, that's a whole nother story. And then there was husband. So I made dinner because I wasn't going out of town. And my husband says, what are we having? And I said, chicken and cheesy scalloped potatoes. Well, apparently my smartphone decided I wanted to say pastors instead of potatoes. So I had chicken and cheesy scalloped pastors. And then I was like, goodness gracious, can I just put a bed of those sheets up over my head and end this day? And then we found out the chicken was rotten. So he had nausea and diarrhea the next day. I had nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea the next day.
Oh, no.
Or actually dry haze. So yeah, that was fun. Perfect ending.
Oh.
But I laugh about it. Now, normally 10 years ago, I'd have been talking about it and complaining about it for months. Like, poor me, you know. So a lot of these things, it gives you tenacity. I don't know if I learned it from somewhere or if I came up with it on my own, but tenacity is face elasticity. Because as you your faith gets stronger, you can handle more. You can bounce back from things faster. You can bounce, you know. But in order to get there, you have to go through these storms.
Yeah.
And the storms can define you or refine you. You can let them limit you. Like, I can't do this because of XYZ. Or you can say, okay, yeah, that happened, but let's get back up and let's do this again. Let's move. You know, you might have to pivot, but you can keep going.
Where I'd kind of like to end with, because as you're sharing these different things that you've walked through and what God has shown you through those things, it sounds like that you've really learned to value the voice of the Lord. Because I know you shared before how God, led you to move to different locations, and you followed His leading, which I think is amazing. Because when God asks us to do big things or like leave a job or move to a new place, it can be hard to make those big life changes. But it sounds like you've really valued the voice of the Lord to follow, like whatever that looks like, whether that's leaving a job, moving, like all these different things. Could you speak to that aspect of what you walked through?
Well, if I don't listen to God's voice, I've done a couple decades, actually about 40 years without God. And I made a mess of things. So I need to make sure I listen to His voice. And that goes back again to perceptions, because I see this. He sees this. I see this. He sees this. He knows more than I do. And yeah, I may go through storms. And if I look back at most of my storms, I was the initiator. I was the one trying to do it my way, keeping it, my way. And so it's just one of those things that once I finally recently gave up all control, I have a new career. I have a new ministry. I have, you know, and I'm not saying I'm not doing. I'm not saying there's not anxiety there, because there's a lot of anxiety. Thank goodness I have the tools to process that emotion, and I do it. For the longest time, I kept saying I'm doing it afraid, and I'm now my every word. I'm doing it anyway.
That's good. I like that.
Because I don't want fear in that in any way, shape, or form. One thing the trauma counselor taught me is your body doesn't know the difference between anxiety and fear, or anxiety and excitement. It doesn't know the difference. So she says, you might as well do it excited, because it can't differentiate to your body. It's the same thing.
That's interesting. So Judy, I know there's just like so many other aspects of things we could go into, but I just love that you shared your story and that you just offered, so many pearls of wisdom for people to grab a hold of and really think even more deeply on. So thank you for coming on today and sharing. And I'm excited because Judy is going to be sharing at the Live Your Purpose conference August 3rd. She's going to have a few minutes where she just gets to pour out her heart and share there. So if you want to hear Judy live, you should come to the Live Your Purpose conference August 3rd if you're in the local area. And so I'm just excited for this to be one of many places where you're able to share your story. And I'm excited for your book to come out. And so you'll have to keep us posted when that happens. And so just God bless you, Judy. And until next time, thank you.